Discord.
Some of the greatest sci-fi stories ever told ended with one unspoken promise. There's more to come. Audiences lined up, studios counted the money, and then nothing happened. No sequel, no continuation, just silence. And the worst part is, it wasn't because these films failed. In fact, most of them made hundreds of millions of dollars in their opening weekends. Some of them became cultural landmarks. A few of them literally changed the entire sci-fi genre forever. But Hollywood looked at all of that and still said no. Not right now, not worth the risk, maybe later. And here's the thing, there are 15 of them. 15 sci-fi films that earned their sequels in every way that matters and still got buried instead. Every single one of these movies left a story unfinished. So if you've ever watched a sci-fi film, loved it, and wondered why the next chapter never arrived, this is for you. Number 15. I, Robot, 2004. Before Will Smith ever touched this project, Arnold Schwarzenegger was attached to star for years. Disney owned the rights first, with Bryan Singer set to direct. Then Denzel Washington was offered the lead and turned it down. By the time Fox acquired the property and handed it to Dark City director Alex Proyas, the film had already been in development for nearly a decade. Behind the scenes, the screenplay by Jeff Vintar started life as an original mystery called Hardwired, a stage play-style thriller set in a single location. Fox spent years having Vintar expanded into a blockbuster, and only later decided to attach Isaac Asimov's name to the project.
You are experiencing a car accident.
The hell I am!
Akiva Goldsman was brought in late specifically to write action scenes and jokes tailored to Smith's persona. About 80% of Sonny's final shots used Tudyk's on-set performance plates, which meant Digital Domain and Weta Digital had to digitally paint him out of more than 200 individual shots. The robot's design came from production designer Patrick Tatopoulos, who was inspired by the transparent casing of Apple's iMac, combining see-through shells with angelic facial features. iRobot opened at number 1 with $52 million and ultimately grossed over $350 million worldwide. Number 14. Serenity, 2005. Fox canceled Joss Whedon's Firefly after just 11 of its 14 produced episodes aired. The show averaged 4.7 million viewers, which by network standards in 2002 was a death sentence. But here's the thing, the complete series DVD box set, released in December 2003, did something nobody expected. By September 2005, it had sold roughly 500,000 copies, turning a canceled show into one of the best-selling television DVD releases of its era. That grassroots momentum caught Universal's attention. The studio acquired the rights from Fox under the codename The Kitchen Sink, then greenlit it as Serenity. The original budget projection came in at around $100 million. During production, the entire Firefly set had to be rebuilt from scratch, using old blueprints and frozen images pulled from the DVD release as reference. Behind the scenes, the production used kit bashing for spaceship models, combining existing model kits to create new vessels instead of designing them from the ground up. Pyrotechnics that would normally take 2 weeks on a blockbuster were filmed across just 3 nights at Mystery Mesa near Valencia. The entire shoot, originally estimated at 80 days, wrapped in under 50. Serenity opened at number 2 domestically and ultimately earned only $38.8 million worldwide, barely matching its production budget before marketing costs were even factored in. Number 13. Chronicle, 2012. Josh Trank was 27 years old when Chronicle opened at number 1. That made him the youngest director to debut atop the US box office, beating Steven Spielberg, who was 28 when Jaws opened. Seeing this prospect, Fox banked on Trank $15 million for a found footage film about 3 teenagers who develop telekinetic powers after discovering a mysterious object underground. The script was co-written by Max Landis, who pitched the project to Fox behind Trank's back and wrote the first draft in just 3 weeks. And here's the thing. Trank made his 3 leads, Dane DeHaan, Michael B. Jordan, and Alex Russell, live together for 15 days before filming to build genuine chemistry. To create the flying sequences, the visual effects team used wire rigs, cable cams, and green screen works. A camera was mounted on a skateboard to simulate Andrew's camcorder sliding across the floor, and stuntmen were suspended from crane rigs for the airborne scenes. When Chronicle opened, it earned $22 million in its first weekend, doubling its entire budget in 3 days. It ultimately grossed over $126 million worldwide, making it one of the most profitable genre films of the decade. Number 12. Dredd, 2012. The first time Hollywood tried Judge Dredd, Sylvester Stallone took his helmet off. But here's the thing. In the comics, that never happens. Dredd's helmet is everything. The helmet represents the faceless, remorseless machinery of the law. Stallone removing it in 1995 wasn't just a costume decision. It was a symbol of how completely that production had missed the point. So when Karl Urban came aboard the 2012 reboot, he made one thing crystal clear from the start. The helmet stays on. Every single scene, no exceptions. The production was given a budget of $45 million. Behind the scenes, the production was chaotic. Director Pete Travis clashed with producers over creative direction, and executives grew so unhappy with the footage that Travis was eventually barred from the editing room. Garland stepped in and took over post-production. Urban later stated publicly that Garland was the true director, calling it his real debut before Ex Machina. Judge Dredd creator John Wagner served as a consultant throughout, ensuring the film stayed faithful to the source material. Then the film came out and marketing was terrible. Urban himself later criticized the rollout, saying the film had zero audience awareness and that nobody even knew it was being released. Dredd opened at number 6 domestically with just $6.3 million and ended its theatrical run at a total of roughly $41 million worldwide. Number 11. Alita Battle Angel, 2019. James Cameron first announced this project in 2003. He spent years writing a 186-page screenplay and accumulating over 600 pages of production notes, obsessively developing every detail of a world adapted from Yukito Kishiro's manga series. Then, Avatar happened. That film consumed Cameron's entire creative life, and when it became the highest-grossing movie in history, he committed to spending the rest of his career making sequels to it. Alita was stranded. It sat in development for over a decade until Robert Rodriguez entered the picture. Cameron asked Rodriguez to condense his massive screenplay into a shootable script. Satisfied with the result, Cameron offered him the director's chair. Fox initially balked at the budget, which was projected between $175 and $200 million. Rosa Salazar was cast as Alita and underwent 5 months of exhaustive martial arts training, learning Eagle Claw Kung Fu, Muay Thai, and staff work to prepare for the motion capture performance. Weta Digital handled the digital character work for Alita's face and body. They had to completely redesign their motion capture pipeline to capture every subtle facial expression Salazar delivered on set. Cameron insisted the film pay homage to Bruce Lee, influencing Alita's fighting technique in a key mirror scene. The film also cast Edward Norton in an uncredited non-speaking cameo as the villain Nova, a deliberate setup for a sequel. When Alita opened, it earned just $28 million domestically. The worldwide total climbed past $400 million. Number 10. Tron Legacy, 2010. The original Tron in 1982 cost $17 million, earned a moderate box office return, and was famously disqualified from the Academy Award for Best Visual Effects because the Academy felt that using computer animation was cheating. Disney then spent nearly 3 decades to make the sequel. And here's the thing. Disney greenlit this sequel with a budget of $200 million. Initially, the studio hired makeup artist Rick Baker to construct a physical mold of a younger Bridges face as reference for the digital de-aging work, but scrapped it when they decided they wanted the character to look even more youthful. They then rebuilt the likeness entirely in digital. Actor John Reardon served as Bridges' body double on set, performing the physical actions that would later have the digital young face composited on top. The entire process took over 2 years to complete. Tron Legacy opened to 44 million domestically and grossed just over 400 million worldwide. Against a production budget approaching 200 million and an enormous marketing spend, the film fell well short of profitability. Number 9. Pacific Rim, 2013. Guillermo del Toro designed roughly 100 different kaiju and 100 different Jaegers for this film. Only a fraction made it to the screen. Every week during pre-production, the creative team held votes to pick their favorites, whittling down an overwhelming volume of concept art into the handful of creatures and mechs that would actually appear. The production budget landed around $190 million, making it Del Toro's most expensive and most ambitious project by a wide margin. During production, John Knoll and Hal Hickel used ILMs to handle the visual effects. The total shot count reached 1,566 visual effects shots, split across ILM facilities in San Francisco, Singapore, and Vancouver. Legacy Effects co-owner Shane Mahan, the same craftsman behind the Iron Man armored suits, built the pilot suits, helmets, and con pod interiors as practical sets. The production also employed 3210 Studios for quarter-scale miniature effects, constructing a practical office building interior and a soccer stadium with rows of seats blown apart by air cannons. Del Toro described the film as his most unmodest work, saying the scale was enormous and he was just a big kid having fun. Pacific Rim opened to just 37 million domestically, but the international markets told a completely different story. China alone generated 136 million, making it the film's single largest territory and Warner Bros.' biggest opening day in the country at the time. Number 8. Edge of Tomorrow, 2014. The film that became Edge of Tomorrow almost had a completely different name. It started as a Japanese light novel called All You Need Is Kill. That title had a raw, kinetic energy that perfectly matched the story. But as filming wrapped, Warner Bros. President Sue Kroll said the title was changed partly due to negative chatter about the word kill in the title. Director Doug Liman wanted to call it Live, Die, Repeat. The studio overruled him and went with Edge of Tomorrow. Then, when the home release came out, they quietly renamed it Live, Die, Repeat, Edge of Tomorrow anyway. A film with a genuine identity crisis before it ever reached audiences.
Stop! Wait! Stop!
Warner Bros. Originally offered a main role to Brad Pitt. He said no. Then, Tom Cruise stepped in, and the script was rewritten to match his age. And that was just the beginning of the chaos. Production cost $178 million, with Warner Bros. Spending over $100 million more on advertising alone. Behind the scenes, nearly 50 sets were built at Warner Bros. Studios Leavesden outside London. The Normandy Beach battlefield was constructed on the back lot, requiring 1,300 tons of sand shipped in over 4 months and surrounded by an 1,800-foot green screen for CGI extensions. The exosuits worn by Cruise and Emily Blunt were fully practical, built as wearable mechanical rigs. Blunt has spoken publicly about crying when she first put hers on, overwhelmed by the sheer weight of it. She later nicknamed the beach set the Bitch, after 7 grueling weeks of filming there in full armor. 9 separate visual effects companies handled the post-production work. Edge of Tomorrow opened third at the domestic box office with just 28 million. The worldwide total reached 370 million. Number 7. District 9, 2009. This film only exists because a Halo movie fell apart. Peter Jackson was set to produce a big-screen adaptation of the video game franchise, with first-time director Neil Blomkamp attached. Microsoft demanded $10 million just for the screenplay, 15% of box office earnings, a $75 million budget, and significant creative control. To Jackson, that demand was unrealistic, so the project collapsed. Seeing this, Jackson turned to Blomkamp and asked if he had any other ideas. Blomkamp suggested expanding his 2005 short film Alive in Joburg into a feature, and that short film became District 9. And here's the thing, Jackson produced the film with a budget of just $30 million.
Tell me, you fucker! You want me to fucking kill you? Hey! Is that what you fucking want? Hey!
Behind the scenes, cinematographer Trent Opalock used 9 Red 1 cameras owned by Peter Jackson. Post-production generated 120 terabytes of data, and the team was warned they could only handle about an hour and a half of red footage per day. The visual effects were handled by Weta Workshop, delivering creature work and alien technology on par with films costing 5 times as much. The film's title and premise were inspired by real events in Cape Town's District 6, where over 60,000 residents were forcibly removed during apartheid. District 9 premiered and opened to 37 million domestically. The final worldwide gross exceeded 210 million. Number 6. I Am Legend, 2007. Warner Brothers spent 13 years trying to make this movie. Development began in 1994. At various points, Ridley Scott, Michael Bay, and Arnold Schwarzenegger were attached. The project stalled repeatedly over budget disputes tied to the script's scope. When Will Smith's film Hancock hit delays in 2007, the studio proposed swapping his schedule. That meant production had to begin in just 16 weeks. During production, screenwriter Akiva Goldsman worked from a 40-page outline and kept rewriting scenes throughout filming. The production budget came in at $150 million. Filming took place on location across New York City, and the mayor's office considered it the biggest production the city had ever hosted at that point. Entire blocks were shut down and dressed to look post-apocalyptic, with abandoned cars, crumbling facades, artificial weeds laid into cracked pavement, and a layer of dirt covering everything. The Brooklyn Bridge evacuation scene alone cost $5 million. It required 6 consecutive nights of filming, 250 crew members, 1,000 extras including 160 National Guard members, several Humvees, 3 Stryker armored vehicles, a Coast Guard cutter, 2 helicopters, and the approval of 14 separate government agencies. Production manager Paul Kramer called it the most physically daunting scene of the entire shoot. I Am Legend opened to the largest ever domestic December debut for a non-Christmas film, ultimately grossing $585 million worldwide. Number 5. Interstellar, 2014. Christopher Nolan planted 500 acres of corn, real corn, in Alberta, Canada. He grew an entire crop specifically so he could destroy it on camera for a dust storm sequence, refusing to use CGI for something the audience could feel was fake. The corn was later sold after production wrapped, and Nolan reportedly turned a profit on it. That single detail tells you everything about how Interstellar was made. The screenplay originated with Jonathan Nolan, who developed the initial script in 2007. Steven Spielberg was originally attached to direct. When Spielberg moved on, Christopher Nolan took over and rewrote the screenplay with his brother. The production budget reached $165 million. Nobel Prize-winning physicist Kip Thorne served as executive producer and scientific consultant, spending 2 weeks at one point talking Nolan out of an idea involving faster-than-light travel because it violated established physics. To minimize green screen work, the visual effects team created digital projections of space environments and displayed them behind the actors on set, so the cast was reacting to actual imagery rather than blank screens. Interstellar grossed over $646 million worldwide and won the Academy Award for Best Visual Effects of the Year. Number 4. Inception, 2010. Christopher Nolan wrote the first treatment for this film in 2002. It was 80 pages long, conceived as a horror movie about dream stealers. One day, he looked at what he had written and decided he wasn't ready to make it, so he shelved the entire project and went off to direct other films instead. And here's the thing. The best measure of the ambition behind Inception is not its $160 million budget or its extreme 4-continent shooting schedule. It is the fact that Nolan wanted to make the movie 10 years before he actually did. That decade of waiting made the final film exactly what it needed to be. Will Smith was the first cast to be offered the lead role, but he turned it down because he didn't understand it. Brad Pitt also passed. Leonardo DiCaprio finally said yes. He even took a pay cut below his usual $20 million asking price in exchange for a first dollar gross deal, meaning he earned money directly from ticket sales before the studio recouped a single expense. That gamble ultimately paid him roughly $50 million. During production, the iconic rotating hallway fight was built as a 100-foot practical set that spun a full 360 degrees, powered by 2 massive electric motors inside 8 concentric rings. Joseph Gordon-Levitt trained for weeks to perform his own stunts inside the contraption. The Paris Café explosion used real air cannons firing harmless debris around DiCaprio and Elliot Page, who were sitting right in the middle of it. The Penrose staircase was constructed as a practical, forced perspective set. No green screen. When Inception premiered, it grossed just $839 million worldwide. Despite this numbers, Nolan has never once discussed a sequel. Number 3. Ready Player One, 2018. Warner Brothers first tried to get Christopher Nolan to direct this film. He declined. The studio then assembled a shortlist that included Robert Zemeckis, Edgar Wright, Matthew Vaughn, and Peter Jackson. Steven Spielberg finally signed on, and suddenly the adaptation of Ernest Cline's 2011 novel had the one director in Hollywood whose career literally defined the pop culture the book was celebrating. The production budget came in at $175 million. For 3 hours, 3 days a week, Spielberg met with Industrial Light and Magic to oversee the film's visual effects, with ILM alone producing 900 visual effects shots for the Oasis sequences. That schedule ran for months. For a director with Spielberg's track record, that level of personal immersion in post-production is remarkable. Behind the scenes, the entire real-world environment of a dystopian Ohio was built largely from Birmingham's industrial areas, with CGI used to erase recognizable landmarks and replace them with the collapsed Americana of 2045.
Rento?
In fact, a planned explosion on Lionel Street in Birmingham caused nearby residents and businesses to call emergency services because the production team had failed to give advance notice. When Ready Player One opened, it grossed over $607 million worldwide. Number 2. Real Steel, 2011. Boxing Hall of Famer Sugar Ray Leonard trained Hugh Jackman for this movie. He personally gave Jackman boxing lessons so that every punch, every stance, every subtle shoulder movement would look natural. And here's the thing, nobody talks about Real Steel the way they talk about films that changed cinema. And that is exactly the point. The truth is, Real Steel was never a film trying to change cinema. It was a film trying to reach the part of you that still gets up out of your seat when the underdog lands the punch that matters. The production budget was $110 million. During production, director Sean Levy used a groundbreaking tool called Simulcam, which captured live motion from human fighters and simultaneously displayed CGI robots on a monitor in real time. Every robot in the film was built twice, once as a full-scale animatronic puppet for close-up shots and physical interaction with the actors, and second as a digital creation for the wide action sequences. Real Steel opened and earned $85.5 million in North America and $213.8 million internationally. Its worldwide total grossed $299.3 million. Number 1. The Matrix, 1999. Warner Brothers almost didn't make this film. The Wachowskis pitched the concept in 1994, and the studio could not wrap its head around it. The siblings had only directed one feature, and here they were asking for tens of millions of dollars to build a science fiction universe unlike anything Hollywood had ever attempted. Warner Brothers greenlit the project with an initial budget of $63 million. The film's visual effects were revolutionary. The bullet time technique, in which the camera appears to orbit a frozen or slow-motion subject, was developed by visual effects supervisor John Gaeta, using an array of over 100 still cameras arranged in an arc, each triggered in rapid sequence and then interpolated digitally. That process took 2 years to develop. Every fight sequence was choreographed by legendary martial arts director Yuen Wu Ping, who demanded the entire principal cast train in Kung Fu for 4 months before filming a single scene. Production designer Owen Patterson built enormous practical sets, including the dojo, the lobby, and the subway station where the climactic fight between Neo and Agent Smith takes place. The Matrix opened to $27 million domestically in its first weekend, eventually grossing $467 million worldwide. If this list proves anything, it's that the most wanted sequel in Hollywood is always the one nobody has the courage to make. Let us know in the comment which sequel you want most. And if you haven't already, subscribe to our channel. See you in the next video.